It's the start to another week out here, and we have a little more winter going on. To start off this week, we actually kind of started yesterday. My house is having some draining issues, so we're actually going to go break a little ice and make sure this thing's draining again this morning. It's nice to see a little more fresh snow because we got some other jobs we're kind of waiting on the snow for. All right, let's go burn some stuff. What we need for today's job is not a whole lot, so I always like to bring a pitchfork and kind of fluff things up. Then we need our actual starter fluid here, which our mixture is some diesel with a little bit of gas. So that's, if you guys don't know, diesel burns and gas is actually explosive. So that's why we just put a lot of diesel and then a little bit of some gasoline just to kind of get things going. Like I said, I do like to kind of get in here and sort of fluff things up, try to get some of that snow out of the way here anyways. And this is gonna kind of be our little money spot here for burning too. So we actually got the wind kind of coming out of this way. So if we start our fire in here, the wind should kind of blow in there and it'll just really keep it burning nice and hot. Get ourselves a nice little kind of trail going out in the snow. And there we go. So I didn't put a ton of gasoline in this thing, but just a little bit, kind of get things going. Now that we're at that point, what we can actually do is grab the pitchfork and kind of throw our fire around here too. But I'm gonna put the propane away first, and probably the fuel too. That's like I said, if we kind of get our wind direction right, it does not take very long for that thing to start just really burning there. You can see it's really getting with it right now, especially right in that little hole like I was talking about too. So this side's really not burning super great, so I'm gonna try to grab a little bit of some of this hot stuff and see if we can get this started over here. When I say it's hot, I mean it is pretty toasty warm right now too. Like my face is cooking. There we go, that should get going real nicely there now. Like I said, it's kind of nice having a little bit of a breeze just because that oxygen really makes the fire get going here. And as always, we do try to stay out of the smoke here too, because yeah, it's not good inhaling a bunch of smoke like that. I must be kind of a pyro because I always really love doing this job too. There's something just enjoyable being around a nice big warm bonfire like this on a kind of cold, snowy day. I did forget to mention that, but that's actually one of the very first things we do whenever we're burning anything is we call the local sheriff's department. You have to have a burn permit and you have to let them know that you are burning stuff. That way, in case any of the neighbors call or someone driving by is like, oh my gosh, something's on fire there, the sheriff department kind of knows what's going on. And about 5 hours later, our bales are almost about gone here. There's not actually a whole lot left here. I'm just kind of out here stirring things up. Hopefully we get everything kind of burned off. There is some stuff underneath that's still not burnt yet. That's one thing though, this stuff is probably gonna smolder for a few days. I did finally get the backhoe started and put in the shop here, but now I'm gonna have to take it right back out again because I'm gonna have to put our spreader truck in here. Off to my dad's place. We're gonna go see my brother and go steal a piece of equipment and then bring it over to the farm here. Well, we just got home with the rig. The deer are out there in the neighbor's field over there. But this is our spreader truck. So it's just a GMC truck, and then on the back we've got our spreader body here. So how the spreader body works is you put the fertilizer in the top, and then we have this little motor down here with our chain, and that chain just takes some of that fertilizer from the bottom and it scrapes it. And then it comes to the back here where it gets pulled out. You can see some of that fertilizer right there, but it pulls that fertilizer out, dumps it in these two guys, hits those spreader discs, and then it gets thrown out in the field. This is gonna be my view for a while here, doing a little fertilizer spread now. Started off with kind of a bouncy field here too, and the reason this field is so bouncy is because we actually kind of seeded it this way, and I'm driving right across all the furrows, so it is pretty rough right now. Not the start I wanted on the morning here, so I actually just started loading up, and then my belt started smoking on this thing. But I'm pretty sure our track's just a little bit too loose, so we're gonna give it a little bit more tightening, kind of get it right. Finally getting a little spreading done this morning in the good old spreader truck here. Still a bit chilly with the window down though. And I know you guys can't really tell, but this is actually a seeded field. So yeah, this field's all winter wheat. We seeded it in the fall, and what we're doing is just putting a little bit of some fertilizer on top. Well, we got about 200 acres done out here, and we didn't end up at the coulee too, which is nice. I did actually have one moment where I about slid in there though. That was a bit sketchy. Once you get started loading with this thing, it does not take very long to get things filled up here. And we are ready to go again. We're on to the next field here, but we're gonna have to change our rate to 110 pounds per acre from 130. And I'm gonna have to change my GPS back to 0 degrees, so I figured I'd show you guys how I do that as well. So starting off with our Easy Guide 250 here, I'm gonna go all the way up till I hit that little A mark on the right hand side. I'm gonna hit it again. Yes, I'm finished with the field. I'm gonna create a new field. And I'm just gonna say, okay, we're gonna call it good, 60 foot. 1 foot overlap, 0, we don't need any of the offsets. And yes, we want an A+ line, so you can see there's different ways you can actually set your GPS up. All different things, but we want A+, and then it's at 90 right now, and we want it at 0. So we'll just hold the button down till we hit 0 or 360, it's the same thing. Actually, we're gonna do 360 because I just like that a little bit better than 0. And no boundary. Okay, and we are good on that. And now I'm going to show you guys how we change our application rate. So ours is at 130 pounds per acre right now, and we need to get it to 110. First thing we're going to do is hold this button down though. So after holding it down and this pops up, you can see we're at 54. So it's about roughly half of our actual application rate we're putting down. So we're going to bring this 54 down to 50, and then we should be pretty close to 110 pounds per acre. But how we do that is we hit this button here, and we're going to take this guy actually all the way back up to 9 and then down to 0, and we should be good there. I'm going to click over, and then another thing we have to do is you see this little line up here. We're going to hit this button again until we get all the way back to A. So for some reason, this is just kind of how you set everything. You can see we're at 50 now, and then the last thing we have to do, shut it off, wait a couple seconds, turn it back on, and our application rate is 50, and we should be pretty close to that 110 pounds per acre. And then we'll kick on our spinners and get going out here. Most people nowadays think that spreading fertilizer on top of snow is incredibly inefficient, which I agree with, because if it melts too fast, a lot of your fertilizer ends up just kind of floating down the lowest spots and then not actually going in the ground. So you kind of almost have to hope that the snow melts really slowly so that all the moisture and the fertilizer actually goes into the soil. However, we're mostly doing it because it'll help save us a lot of time in the spring, and that is like the busiest time of the year for us because we're trying to seed, spray, and get the pivots all going with only 2 people. Well, it is exactly 7 o'clock, and I've been in the truck for about 11 hours today, and I've been working for about 12. So I am kind of tired, I'm a little hungry, and I can't see the chain, which you guys can't see it at all actually, but that's one thing I do like to keep an eye on. We are gonna call it a day and get another early start in tomorrow and see how much we can get done. It's the start to another day. It's about 5 degrees out here with a little wind, and the conveyor just about did not want to start this morning. So it started snowing out here. We can kind of just barely see the road there, but other than that, I cannot see hardly anything out here. This is what we call whiteout conditions, but good thing we got our little GPS to guide us along here. So some of our snow drifts now are a little bit crusted over, and that makes them incredibly hard, which is just extremely rough. But if you kind of think about it like a massage chair that you don't have to pay for, it's not so bad. I'm probably not going to get a ton of footage today just because I am really trying to pay attention to that light bar today. It's really difficult trying to follow the light bar when it's whiteout conditions like this, because yes, we are following the GPS, but every time I hit one of these bumps, I kind of get thrown off direction a little tiny bit, and I can't just look out the window to kind of see the field or power poles or anything to actually make sure I'm running straight. So it's kind of just a little bit more difficult today. Another day, another issue. So today our problem is the actual belt here. So for some odd reason we're not getting enough traction with the belt here. So if I turn it on here, you can see that belt is not moving. It tries to. So sometimes at the lower speed it was working, but now it's not. And I don't know if we got some oil in here and it's just not getting any traction on the belt or what the problem is, but it's not working. And yes, I did adjust with the tension a bunch. Been messing with it for about the past hour, so I don't think it's anything wrong with our tension. I'm almost wondering if we just got some goo kind of built up in here, some oil from the canola plants that kind of got in there for just not getting any traction now. Just gotta get that yellow auger all set up now. So this is definitely a little bit slower than the belt conveyor. However, it is way simpler compared to the belt as well though. I just put the spreader truck in the shop because we have a little bit of a weather delay out here now. So the wind was out of the straight north earlier, and that's fine because that does not mess up our spread pattern any, but now it's kind of coming out of the northwest and west a little bit, and that will really mess up our spread pattern. So we do have to wait for the wind to kind of die down a little bit right now. But hopefully Mother Nature cooperates and the wind dies down, because I do have a ton of spreading to get done. But while we have it here in the shop, we are going to clean the cab out a little bit, top off our hydraulic oil, and then check some things, maybe hit some stuff with grease, and yeah, just kind of get things ready to go again. So I figured I'd show you guys how everything inside the cab here works. And we're going to actually engage our PTO, and that is going to turn our discs on. So they should be running now, and I always like to just double check, make sure these guys are spinning, and we can see they're both spinning away. Hop back in the cab here. We can hit this little button, and if we actually hold this thing up, it'll turn that little chain in the back. And then when we're in this kind of middle zone here, that's just in auto, and then off. And then we always like to shut it off when we're not kind of going down the field there. So right now we're off, and now we should be ready to go. What we're gonna do, put it into first here, we'll take off. We're gonna try to get into third kind of very quickly. There we go. And we gotta turn our marker on here. Try to get lined up at the same time, using the light bar. I just flipped the switch on, so we should be putting stuff down now, which yes, our chain is moving, so everything's working. And this field is relatively smooth, so I can cruise along at 13, 14 mile an hour with no problem. It's not super rough. However, visibility is still pretty poor. You guys probably can't actually see out the window. But yeah, at this point it's pretty easy. We just kind of have to drive straight down the field. So we are following our light bar, which I might have to do a separate video to show you guys that. But yeah, no auto steer in this thing. And I'm doing these fields right now because these fields are pretty flat, so there shouldn't be any big drifts. And I'm gonna kind of save all our coulee edge fields for when I can actually see what's going on, because there could be some very large drifts out in those guys. But at least the wind did die down, so hopefully everything should work out pretty well from here on out. We're coming up to the end here, so what we need to do right about now, we'll shut off our chain, get turned around here. It is extremely kind of hard to see where our actual end is. Hopefully we got pretty close. Just kind of use our light bar to get turned back around here. Turn the chain back on and get lined up, and we're kind of all over the place. There we go. And now we're good for another mile-long strip here. That's actually another thing. I don't know if you guys can see the tack, but yeah, we have to run kind of above 1500 RPMs just to keep all the hydraulics kind of going. And that's why kind of my speed choices are about 10 miles an hour or 14 mile an hour. So that's the light bar I'm talking about there. So if we're 3 green lights, that means we're running pretty straight. However, if we get off to one side, that's the way you want to turn. So when we have our couple red lights on the right, that means we got to turn right to get kind of lined back up straight. So yep, that little light bar is what we're going to be looking at until I'm done here. Just got another 160 acres done, but we ran into a pretty good problem, which is our bin is empty, which means we're moving on to the next top or bottom bin and gonna keep going. However, the bin we need to go in is the one down there, so we're gonna have to get the semi moved, but thankfully it did start. So we'll have to get everything else moved down there now too. We got everything moved and it all went pretty well, except for our semi is kind of stuck down the bottom of the hill there, but we don't need it, so we'll just kind of leave that there until I can get it moved someday. Got stuck, but I was able to kind of rock the truck back and forth to get it out, but man, it is just deep out here. It's kind of crazy right now. Yesterday we got all that snow, but then last night the wind blew like crazy. So now I have some large snow drifts kind of all over the yard here. That's like, this one's like a 4-foot tall snow drift kind of right in the area I have to drive to get the spreader truck filled up. We got some other drifts over there, and then we got some other big ones over by the shop. So yeah, we can't even hardly get past the fuel tanks to get back in the back part of the yard here. But our steers did make it through the night, which is good because I've already seen a couple Snapchats from some of my buddies of their cows buried in snow. But I think I'm gonna have to wrap the week up by doing a little snow plowing. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.